Dunkirk. This film is directed by Christopher Nolan and stars Tom Hardy, Mark Rylance, Kenneth Branagh, and Harry Styles. And this is the story of the evacuation of Dunkirk. Now, Christopher Nolan is probably my all-time favorite director, with films like Inception, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Memento. This could go on forever. But going into this movie, I was obviously very, very excited. Christopher Nolan was going to be directing a war film.
There are 400,000 men on this beach.
Everybody that has seen this movie has recommended seeing it in IMAX 70mm, so I went an extra 30 minutes out of my way to go to an IMAX screen, and oh my gosh, is this the way you have to see this. It is probably the loudest movie you'll ever hear in a theater. Bombs dropping, gunshots, surround sound, but that is part of the experience, which I think is the most important thing about this movie. It only further immerses you into this movie, which I think is the true strength and point of this movie even being made, is to really get you into the moment and the experience. Some of the complaints I had read before seeing this movie were, oh, there's no characters, you can't really latch on to anyone, so I wasn't really immersed in the movie. That is true, however, there are some characters you learn a little about, but at the heart of this movie, I don't think that's really the point. I think Christopher Nolan really intended for you not to focus on any one character, but a specific event. You'll know in the first 5 minutes of the movie that this is really 3 separate stories, each telling different aspects of this evacuation, and you see how they intertwine. That's probably my favorite thing about this movie, though, is that you don't have any characters to necessarily latch on to, but that's basically the whole point of this movie, is being thrown into this situation, and you don't really necessarily know any of the characters, but you feel for them just because of what's happening to them and the pure intensity of the things going on around them, which is another great thing that this movie does. The whole hour and 47 minutes that this movie was going, I had my fist clenched, I had my eyes glued to the screen. There's never a dull moment in this movie. It's always intense, and that's where I really think this movie stands out. There's not really a, oh, let's settle down, get to know each other moment. It's like non-stop intensity, switching through all these different aspects of the war, and that's why I absolutely love this movie. The performances in this movie are very, very good. There isn't much dialogue in this movie, but I don't think that really takes away from anything, because if you were a person in war, you wouldn't really just randomly start a conversation with the person next to you because there's bombs dropping everywhere. When I was watching this movie, I didn't see actors playing characters. I saw soldiers and people dealing with war, and that's one of my major praises for this movie. I'm just going to say this flat out. I think Christopher Nolan should win Best Director for this movie. There are so many shots and sequences where I got chills at just how real it looks, and that's another thing. There's barely any CGI, if at all CGI. I didn't notice it, but real planes, real explosions, all real, no fake, and that just immerses you even further into this movie.
You can practically see it from here.
What?
Home.
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of a negative I had, besides that there were no character depth, but that, once again, was a part of the story and part of the experience, and you're just supposed to feel for them because they're in a terrible situation, not because you know their whole history. So, with that said, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. It is probably in my top 3 Christopher Nolan movies of all time. We'll see how it changes with time. But definitely go see this movie if you like war movies and edge of your seat movies that are intense the whole time. This is definitely a watch. This is probably my favorite movie of the year so far, so I don't know if any other movies are going to be able to top it. Star Wars. I will have many reviews coming to my channel soon, so stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.